Hey, it's Courtney Atkinson with my first show called the Dooryard Union, and I'm here with Daleen Heck. Daleen owns a company called Hectic Media, right?
That's right.
Okay, and you have another company where you do travel consulting or Hectic Travels. Tell me about that.
Okay, so Hectic Travels is where it all began.
Okay.
Um, and it's a travel blog that we started almost 9 years ago now when we began traveling the world and living as nomads. So it really just kind of started as a way to keep our family and friends posted on what we were doing and where we were, and then it evolved into an actual business. And then from that, Hectic Media was born, where we got into social media consulting and other types of digital marketing.
And so I was sharing with you just before the show about how one of my great passions in life is being able to speak to entrepreneurs. I also love traveling, although I've talked to you about some of my limitations around that. And so I was really inspired when you reached out to me and told me a bit about your story and described yourself as like a traveling nomad, and that you were able to turn that into a business. I thought that was just a crazy combination of really, really exciting things. And so I want to talk to you about how that happens. Like, so you're walking along in your life. You lived in Lethbridge, is that right?
Actually, in Calgary before it all happened. Yeah.
Okay, and then you're like on a plane with no worldly belongings.
Yeah.
So how does that happen?
Seems very random, I understand. It's kind of a sordid tale, I guess. In 2007, my husband and I had both, we're actually living in Okotoks,
Okay.
commuting and working in Calgary. We both had really great jobs, climbing the ladder in corporate Calgary, and life was as it should be, apparently. And then early that year, we suffered a good number of tragedies, just back and forth. My husband's mother passed away. We found out we couldn't have kids, and then my sister passed away very suddenly, all within 4 months. And that really, as you can expect, throws you for a pretty big loop. And I was off work for the next 6 months, just trying to figure it out. And
What kind of work were you doing?
so I was purchasing manager for
Okay.
in oil and gas, and my husband was a controller at a small oil field supply company.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were doing quite well. And but at that point, then I kind of felt like I lost all kind of drive and ambition.
And
for
that
what
was
I
at a time
doing.
when the economy was booming too. I mean,
Yeah.
oil and gas was super strong. I mean, it certainly wasn't a matter of escaping, lost opportunity. or
No,
something.
not at all.
Yeah.
But it really just made us rethink, what are we doing with our lives? What do we want? We thought it was going to be this, and then when you can have kids and all this, it really hit us hard. And so when we talked about, you have a bad day, I'm going to sell everything and I'm going to go travel the world.
I've never said that.
No, nobody's ever said that. We did it all the time, and then you drink a bottle of wine, and your boss apologizes, and then
Right.
it's all better,
to,
right?
to this day, my backup plan, if it all crashes, is still to move to like Koh Samui,
Oh, yeah.
open a little bar on the beach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Anyway.
it, right?
You basically did that.
Yeah, basically. So then we brought it up again, and at this point we had really kind of run out of excuses not to do it. And it was on a drive, and I remember we talked about it for a second, and then it was like dead silent all the way home. And then we pulled in, we're like, we're really doing this. And so
I love those moments where you're like, you haven't even really fleshed it out. You're just like, holy cow, this is gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody believed us when we started telling people until a few months later I quit my job
Yeah.
and was, beginning to think about what we would do next. Or really I thought the house would sell really quickly. And if you remember what happened in spring of 2000.
Yeah. It was a tough year there, right? Oh, that was a great year in Calgary, wasn't it?
No, we listed about a month after everything started to fall.
Okay.
So our timing was terrible.
Yeah.
So we waited a year with the house on the market and pulled the house off because it wasn't selling. And we're like, okay, I guess this isn't happening.
Yeah.
And then someone who had viewed it came back a month later and
Yeah.
made an offer.
After you canceled.
Yeah.
We talked about today about how that happens randomly, so
Yeah.
I'm glad it happened for you.
Yeah, it was random, and I mean, we kind of took it back compared to what we would have had a year ago, but it didn't matter, it was happening. So we sold the house, and a few months later, we got rid of everything else and fit everything into, our backpacks were too big to start with, maybe 200 liters, and we took off with a one-way ticket to Bolivia, of all
For
places.
real?
For real.
So why Bolivia?
Good question. I don't really remember why we decided Bolivia.
Seriously, you don't actually know. You're just like, ah.
Start on map. we knew we wanted to learn Spanish. That was kind of a goal of both of us. And Bolivia is a very inexpensive country. It is a really, in the city of Sucre, it's a really great base. It's a small city to sit and learn Spanish. We learned that from someone who had been there. So that was the goal, was we went to Bolivia, and we spent a year around South America. And then we came back to Canada because my husband's brother was getting married. We weren't quite sure. We came back and we thought, we'd blown through a chunk of our savings. And we thought, man, maybe we're tired. Maybe we want to stop. Maybe we want to resume the life that we had. And we got back and we were like, we want to get back out there.
Was the wedding in Calgary?
Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Edmonton's a better city than Calgary. Yeah.
So that was it. And then we made plans and tried to figure out how to travel more economically and how to start making some money while we were doing it, because we knew the savings wouldn't last forever.
Wow. And so what period of time was this between the one-way trip to Bolivia and your brother's wedding?
So just about a year.
Okay.
So so we came back in fall of 2000. Oh, what is that now? 2011 for that.
Yeah.
And then so when we decided we were going to go back out on the road, we had actually also just discovered house sitting.
Yeah.
So that's a way to take care of other people's homes while they're on vacation or whatever. So you can go experience a new part of the world and live there without any accommodation.
And there
costs.
was still a network for doing that, even however many years ago that was.
Just starting, just starting. So our first one was actually in British Columbia, which was fine, and then we went from there to Honduras, and then there to Ireland, and we've house sat in a couple dozen countries and probably saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on accommodations.
Yeah, that's like one of the most expensive things, right?
Yeah.
I remember getting the biggest shock of my young life. We were in Rome. And I think it was like $400 or $500 a night or something by the time you converted it to Canadian. How could you afford to be at a place like that for very long, right?
We got to live in New York City and Manhattan for 6 weeks without paying a dime on accommodations. Like, house sitting was the best for our situation because we could travel slower, which is also much cheaper, and experience a place. Like our house that was in Harlem, it was just so rich of an experience, and we couldn't have gotten that otherwise. So it was a turning point for us.
So during that stage, it sounds like you had a mind to monetizing your experiences, but hadn't quite rocked that yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had figured out by then that there were these things called travel blogs. There weren't very many. Influencer marketing had not.
It wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a thing at all. And but we thought, we saw some of the blogs that were out there, and we thought, we could do that.
We're better than those idiots.
I didn't want to say that on the air.
It's okay.
But no, none of them are probably going to listen. So yeah. So we started up the blog, and it's not a big money making venture back then. Nobody knew anything. I think we calculated the amount of money we made in the first year versus how many hours we put in, and it was like $2 an hour or something. We did some freelance writing on the side. We did a couple of other things. I mean, as an entrepreneur, when you're starting out, you're just grabbing income streams, right? Just trying to do whatever you can to keep going. And but between house sitting and doing that, we were able to sustain ourselves. And then after a while, we were well into the black doing that as well.
So I'm curious, was it the passion for the travel and the independence and the freedom that motivated you to find a way to monetize it, or had you at that time become super passionate about this business that you had just learned was a thing?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think probably a bit of both. Like, we were so passionate about the lifestyle and continuing on as we were. But then again, we also found kind of new passions. Like, my husband self-taught himself to be a really great photographer. I've written some in the past, but not a lot. And then I really started to enjoy it, and I won a few awards for it. And, so things just kind of seemed to fall into place. And then, we both have strong business backgrounds, which a lot of people that are blogging don't have. So that gave us, some solid foundation to speak to tourism boards, to speak to businesses about how we could help each other. So really that was really important, and everything just kind of seemed to merge and fall into place. And
the thing that is interesting to me about that, I mean, there's many things that are interesting about it, but there was no Udemy or any, really YouTube wasn't even a thing. Like, where were you going to go to learn how to hack, your life while you're traveling? You were creating all these opportunities out of thin air, basically.
I mean, there were some groundbreakers before us. Tim Leffel, 4 Hour Work Week. There's other things like that, like, you know, we weren't the first to do it, but there wasn't that huge community that there is now. We would connect with people like us, you know, on the road and or online once we started to figure out what Twitter was. And, you know, we developed a really good, solid community of people that not only knew the kind of life we were living, but we all shared ideas on how to move ahead and stuff like that. So it was a really tight-knit community to begin with. Now it's massive.
Is there more competition for ideas? Like, is it still a really free environment to share and to support and to grow, and or is it more like
yeah, a little more like that, I think, honestly. And there was a time, and also there became a point in time where we really enjoyed what we were doing with the blog. I write very kind of story-based narrative, which doesn't always do as well to monetize. Like if you're thinking about Google ads and all that kind of stuff, it's, you know, top 5 things to do in Paris, not here's the story of what I did in Paris, right? And that's what I like to do. And we made a decision point where it was like, okay, we could take our blog that way and really push the influencer side of it. And, you know, because we're kind of early adopters, that could be an easy path.
I just want to back up real quick and say, push the influencer side. So can you just flesh that out for me and for our listeners a little bit?
Yeah, so, you know, really focus on growth for our Instagram account, for example, right? Okay. Some people will spend hours a day on there commenting on others. They'll buy fans. They'll do all these things to grow their own account. And it was just something that we never really felt confident doing. And I never also felt very confident being someone who could say, hey, I have these sunglasses, it's helping me see Peru a lot better, buy these sunglasses. That's not something we can do. I just don't have that in me.
It's not in you.
No, and I don't, you know, all the power to the people that can do that. I can't do that. But that's how a lot of people are making money now, is these kind of partnerships with brands. So we've come to this point where it's
Gary V's got his own shoes now, right?
Exactly, right? So it was, you know, and that's great. It's just not my bag. Well, okay.
It's a little cheesy, isn't it? Can we just say that?
I haven't seen the shoes. Are they okay?
Is it about how they look, or
it really is.
Okay, well, you're a step ahead of me.
So we've come to this point where, like, we could go that route and probably do really well with it, or we could keep it doing just what we love and working with brands very selectively so that they only, you know, and not make that our core money maker and then do something else. And that's when Hectic Media was born. Was at that decision point.
And so you were the influencer and you were leveraging other brands. And so maybe talk to us about how that decision matrix looked, and I'm curious about how the brand positioning worked in that business too.
Sorry, what went into our...
Yeah, so like what was your decision matrix for choosing like who to work with? And then also like how were you positioning those brands strategically in what you were doing?
Yeah, so it really for us, it was only something we'd experienced on our own. We get a couple dozen emails a week. Hey, could you talk about this? Hey, could you push my new app? Hey, could you blah, blah, blah. And unless it's something that's really important to us, really what we think will be important to our audience, we say no to 99% of the things that come into our inbox. So it has to be something that we can experience for ourselves, something that's very valuable that we think to us or our readers, and and that's the basis, which means that we're saying no far more than we're saying yes. We have a great partnership, for example, with a house sitting website. Okay. I was going to ask what some of your faves were. So. Yeah, so we're one of the first people to write about house sitting, and we wrote an ebook about it and everything. And now, so we have a really great partnership with one of the house sitting websites. We do more work with tourism brands than anything else, or tourism boards, because that's something we can experience, and we can offer them a different take than most, because we do that narrative storytelling. Right. People don't believe in the power of stories enough, right? And so a lot of influencers will come in and write here's the 6 places to eat in Calgary, best places to eat in Calgary. Right. And you bring in 10 influencers and they'll write the same thing. Yeah. And it's great, they're reaching different audiences, but it can get very repetitive. So we have a totally different way that we tell stories, and so that's valuable to tourism boards, or that they see that value in us anyways, and so that's how those partnerships work.
That makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of, in every medium, no matter if you're in the travel blogging business or the real estate business or whatever. There's so many voices out there, and it becomes overwhelming to know like who to trust, who to spend your limited time listening to or reading, and I'm finding that myself too, that I'm more invested in people that I can just relate to.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't even have to be like the highest, most valuable, writer. It's more like who's speaking in a voice that I would just like to sit down and have a coffee with, and I would like to connect that way. And it sounds like you've had success to finding that same audience that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a niche audience. I mean, it's not massive. There's travel blogs out there that are way bigger than we are, but it's an audience that is dedicated. We've had people there from day one.
Yeah.
And so that's really important to us, that relationship with them is put first before anything else.
So one of the things that I thought of when we originally connected was, have you monetized that in terms of building a list and selling product, or creating travel hacks for people who want to live this lifestyle? Have you, are you invested in using ClickFunnels and doing all of that stuff, or have you kind of just left that to some of the other folks that are doing travel blogs?
Yeah, we've left that. And if we would have taken that path, the other path, we would have gotten more dedicated in it. And there is probably stuff that we can do there. We haven't really done much for affiliate marketing on our website or anything like that as well, because it hasn't been, when we made that decision that it's not going to be the only thing that earns us money, we want to just keep that more of a labor of love than anything, then we haven't. So there is opportunity to do more, but we like it the way it is. It's fun for us still, and not many people that blog for 8 years can say they still enjoy it.
Yeah.
A lot of people burn out, and a lot of people just lose that, and we still really enjoy it. So.
Yeah. So you were nominated and won National Geographic's Traveler of the Year. You've been to over 50 countries?
57, I think. We just hit,
57.
I always lose count, and I just looked the other day. So
how do you even keep track? You must have a spreadsheet.
We're so nerdy.
I picture like a map, like with little pins on it, but there'd be too many pins.
Yeah. Well, we might do that yet, now that we actually have a home for the first time.
I guess,
in 8
you need
years.
a wall for that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So you've been asked this question a gazillion times, I'm sure. So maybe I'll try to reframe it a little bit. So instead of like your favorite place, because I'm sure there's many, what place do you feel like you connected with the most? Like, where did you feel like you landed there and within, say, 48 hours you felt at peace and at home?
Wow. In 48 hours.
Maybe 72.
If I say that, like, the most kind of foreign destination, like, I love Scotland and I love Ireland a lot.
Okay.
And I feel very at home there. But that's also because of the language isn't as much of a barrier.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Well, except for the accent.
accent.
Scottish accent is my favorite accent.
Yeah.
But if I think of a foreign destination, the thing that calls out to home to me is Turkey.
Really?
Love Turkey.
I have a friend, Nicholas, who claims that that's also his favorite place.
Yeah. We ended up spending 6 months there. We spent 2-3 month stints house sitting, and we were in a small town in the northwest of Turkey, and no one spoke English except for the high school English teacher, and he became our best friend. And he was very skeptical at first, and
like, what you're doing is not a job.
Yeah, what do you know about our country? Like, very proud, very blah blah blah. And now he sends us emails telling us he loves us and misses us. Like,
wow.
It was just I've never met people, Mustafa and others, who were so welcoming, so generous, so just, it was the most amazing experience. Like I always said, you'd walk down the street and you would just furrow your brow, like you'd be perplexed by something, and people would come out of the woodwork. What's wrong? How can we help you? Are you hungry? Food's over, like we had people get off of a bus when they saw we were perplexed, to miss their bus to get on one with us and help us get to the next place. Like, just overwhelming hospitality like I've never experienced anywhere in my life. Yeah.
That's not what I would have expected you to say.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. So tell me about some of like the business complexities of being in an environment like that. So, I presume that access to data is an issue. I presume that access to technology back in those days is not like ready.
Yeah.
And then I have to think that there are some controls around how and what you can say. Is that true, or not so much?
In other countries, you mean?
Well, maybe not so much in Turkey, but is that the case in other places that you might have visited?
I mean, there becomes a little bit of an obligation when you're working with a tourism board, right? It's more, especially if you're being paid to be there.
So if you're in Saudi Arabia right now, you have to be very careful.
Yeah, I think I'll skip that one. because then it becomes a marketing project, not just,
Yeah.
hey, I'm traveling and enjoying myself.
Mm-hmm.
It might be the benefit of that we're also blog really slowly. So
Yeah.
we'll leave the country and then you'll hear about it later.
So you're telling like retrospectives on.
Yeah, it's more like that. So inside any of them, I've never been worried about anything like that.
Okay.
The biggest concern always is where can we find Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
That's always the biggest thing. And it's funny how bad it can be in some places, yet how surprising in others. We were in Romania for a month, and I love Romania, and they have the 4th fastest Wi-Fi in the world.
In Romania?
Romania.
I picture Romania with like horse and cart.
No, it
and,
really
like,
is
rutted
that.
paths.
But they all have super fast Wi-Fi. It
Really?
was crazy. We spent the weekend on working on a farm with a family just to get that rural experience, and they're still swinging scythes and tractors and horses pulling buggies, but they have one of the fastest Wi-Fis in the world.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's very impressive. We
Wow.
really liked it there.
So walk us through the journey of, 57 countries over 8 years,
Yeah.
right? And then the journey back to Lethbridge. So there was, simultaneously a story of you creating a business, building your livelihood, I suppose reinventing yourself and like kind of figuring out what it is that you are and who you want to be and how you want to grow this business and travel, and then where does it go from there?
Yeah, so we had been on the move for just about 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Really zero plans to stop. It was normal, right? That was our that was our normal life. Was just, we would slow down. We'd spend like at least a month in each place usually, but it was like, hey, we're craving tacos. Let's go live in Mexico for a few months, and that's what we would do. And
We have to drive to Butte for that.
it's true.
No,
tacos made in Mexico. Have you not been there yet here?
to Mexico?
No, in
The place called?
Yes.
Yeah, where's that at? I haven't been there yet. Somebody
yeah.
told me about this.
Yeah, it's
I thought it was
not
the
far.
funniest name for a restaurant.
It is, but they're legit. They're from Mexico City,
I've totally heard this too.
and they're amazing tacos.
Yeah.
Anyways, sidetracked.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so then we were house sitting in an island, or right around Seattle,
Okay.
not far. And I can't remember why we took it. It was close to home. We had just been some visiting or whatever, and it was going to be a couple months in this beautiful house, taking care of a dog. And, we just wanted to sit somewhere quiet and work, and we had some friends in Seattle and whatnot. So while I was there, I was diagnosed with leukemia, which, granted, a blessing that we were so close to home, because the next month we were going to be house sitting in Japan.
Okay.
And I don't know if I would have made it back, but they, popped me full of whatever I needed and said, get on a plane back to Calgary. And so I flew to Calgary, and I walked into Tom Baker as soon as I got off the plane. And it's a scary leukemia, because it's one that can kill you really quickly if you don't take care of it. But once you get past the first month, the chances of a cure is like 90% plus.
So what's the window of time? Sorry if I'm
Nope, that's fine.
prying too deeply, but I'm curious, like the time of like, hey, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And the time being at the hospital and being at Calgary. Paint a picture for us.
Yeah, sure. So I'll tell you the whole story. I woke up in the morning, and I was, getting dressed, and my husband was like, shit, what's that? And it was this massive bruise on my leg, and I didn't hit anything. I didn't whatever. I didn't really, I just said, I don't think I hit anything, but I didn't think much of it. But a couple hours passed, and I actually called, even though I was down there, I called the Alberta Health Link to talk to the nurses and just explain what happened. So they walked me through a bunch of questions, and they said, well, just, draw a Sharpie around it, and if it gets bigger, call us back.
Okay.
Later that night, I was going to bed, and I felt like what was sores in my mouth.
Okay.
And I went and looked, and it was blood blisters. So I was obviously bleeding internally. And so I called the Health Link again, and I'll never forget this nurse. She walked me through the questions, and she was almost in tears at the end, and she said, get yourself to emergency right now. So I went to emergency, and this might be too much detail, but normal human has minimum platelets in their body. That platelets are what stop you from bleeding.
Right.
150,000, and mine were 7,000. So my body was chewing up all my platelets for some reason. So I was in the hospital overnight while they, gave me some blood transfusions and some platelet transfusions. And then the next day, after they said, we think it's this platelet disorder, but we're going to run all these other tests because it could also be some scary things.
Mm-hmm.
So then they came back and they said, it's a scary thing. And the following day, and they...
Like, but I'm supposed to be in Japan.
I know. How could they mess with me like that? But, you know, luckily I was able, this close, honestly, and it's an hour flight, and I was able, they popped me up with whatever I needed just to get me back to Calgary, and then I spent a month in the hospital.
That's gotta seem surreal, getting on a plane like that, to come home sick, to go to a hospital. Like, you know, that's not why we fly.
Not at all. But to be honest, you know, when you're busy doing something and you just get your head down and you just get shit done, that's kind of what it was like. Like, it was just like, okay, I have to deal with this now.
Yeah.
And the impact of it didn't really hit me until I actually was done treatment. Then it really was, and I related it. I wrote a post about hiking a mountain in Peru that we almost slid off of because of mudslides, and it was like that. We just, you know, panicked and running up the hill, and then you get to the top, and I just started bawling like, holy shit, what just happened, you know? So at that point, it was, and I didn't think about, you know, what could happen in those first little bit. It was just deal with it, let's move on. And luckily it's a really rare one, like only affects 100 Canadians a year. It's really
100.
random. Yeah, really random. And so, but the good thing is, for some reason, for this little random leukemia, they have a really good, it used to be the most deadly, but they've developed a treatment that now it's the most curable.
What?
Yeah, it's
That's
crazy.
like a crazy turn of events.
It is crazy. It's in the last 40 years. So I'm fortunate because now, and my doctor here, and you know, confident that I'm never going to have to deal with it ever again. So yeah, right? So that's it. And so that landed us here. And so from Calgary, my sister lives here in Lethbridge with her family, and my mom moved here 6 years ago. So we had a choice. Like, that's funny. They discharge you from the hospital, and they're like, where are we going to go?
So we're going to Japan or what?
Yeah, exactly. So I still had a couple rounds of treatment to do, and I still had, you know, I need healing time, right? So we came down to Lethbridge, and we lived with my mom for a few months, and then we bought our own place, which is weird. That's probably the weirdest thing of all of this.
That seems kind of crazy to me.
Is just to put those roots down. And
but it must have seemed like the right thing to do, and you're obviously very, like, now decision makers, and you just probably had a glass of wine or something, like, so we're going to live here, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, we still kind of were like,
2 glasses of wine.
Yeah, exactly. But no, we just knew that if we needed at least a good solid few years in one place. I can't, and we've tried to go out on the road again. We did 7 weeks in Europe this summer. Okay. And it's exhausting, and really exhausting for me now. It's hard for me to keep up. I can't do what I used to. So it's actually super disappointing because wow, I'm in Paris. I have 2 hours worth of energy. What are we going to do? And then I go sleep the rest of the time. Yeah. So, you know, it just made sense to be in one place. So we bought something here thinking, you know, it's not a forever place, but it'll be a place that I can heal and be near my family, and we can work on our business, and we can do these other things. So it's turned out to be a really great decision. And
well, and I want to talk a bit about your business and what you do, but from what I know, it does sound like the kind of business that you can do from anywhere, right?
It really is. Yeah. We've had some clients with us for 4 years now, and they don't care where we are, as long as the job's getting done, as long as when they want to get on the phone with us, they can. And it helped us through the leaner startup years, right? Because we could live so cheaply and work on just building our brand. But now being back here, I think, is really kind of cemented it, and having that more time to dedicate to it. And we used to have people work for us up until a few months ago. One was in Italy, one was in London, and she was nomadic, moving around. Now we have 2 people from Lethbridge within 5 minutes of each other, right? So it's helping us a lot in that way, and business has been really, really strong for us since we've been back.
So talk to me a bit about the decision to go from virtual, if you will, or outsourced to local. I asked that intentionally. I've done that, and have recently made the decision to bring all of my business back to Lethbridge. And there's lots of personal reasons, but I want to know yours.
Part of it is the people that we had on board with us before were usually bloggers first, which is great because with Hectic Media we do influencer marketing and that stuff as well. So they knew the inside game as well as we did, which was great for us. But they were also a bit more entrepreneurial spirited, right? They weren't as invested in growing HMI as we were. And also they travel a lot. So they're not as reliable. So the decision to have two people here, I mean, we're so fortunate to find, and I'm a little worried as we grow to find that skill base here. But I'm also getting my feet wet here, right? I don't know everybody yet. Not that I will know everybody, but know the playing field well enough yet to know if we can grow enough here. But we're fortunate to have two people that work really well. And it is nice that we got so excited, ridiculously excited, to have a team lunch.
Yeah, where there's more than just you and your husband, right?
Yeah, they were probably like, whatever, just give me my sandwich. But we were like, yeah, team, so that does feel really good. And
it's a proud moment, right?
Yeah, right? And it does feel great to have them excited about the future and what we're doing here, and to give them that opportunity, because, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know that Lethbridge is a big hotbed for, this kind of digital marketing. So it's exciting for them. They're very excited to be a part of it, and which is great for us.
So walk us through the scaling process for your business. So now, you've come back to Canada, you've settled, you've bought a house. At some point in there, you decided that you were going to scale this consulting business and help other businesses do things similar to what you've done, leveraging your skills, right?
Yeah.
So walk us through the scaling process. And the reason I'm being intentional about this question, because my business is constantly in scaling, and one of my biggest troubles as a growth manager is trying to strategically decide where to invest and what to do next. We run out of hours, don't we?
We really do.
And so talk me through how you made the decisions to strategically invest and scale in certain ways.
Okay. So I'll admit first, selfishly, we bring people on so that we can travel more.
I love it. That's awesome.
That's our number one goal.
Yes, but I did it so that I didn't burn out and go insane, and then it became about spending dinners with my kids. Like everybody's got their reason.
Everybody does. And the one thing that I have no qualms about that. I love bringing in other people that have different ideas. There are things I just don't want to do, and I don't care about managing the back end of our websites. Like, I'm not going to learn. I'm not that technical person. Yes, I will outsource that. I'm not going to do that.
Do you believe that the things that you're not interested in are also the things that you may not be the most skilled at? Is that
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And my attention span will be gone. If I don't want to do it, I'm going to hate every minute of it. Then I'm going to end up hating my job. I'm going to end up hating my company. And, that's not what I want. So I have no problem bringing in other people to do that kind of stuff. We made a couple missteps like everybody does. We brought in a business development manager at one point that it was good at the start. We could, like, he was consulting, we could have let him go earlier than we did. And it became kind of a drag and expensive, and it was a bad decision on our part. We're a little more careful about that now. We are investing in, we want the doers. We want the people, I know what my strengths are. I'm better at, more of a managing people level than...
You're good at vision casting.
Yeah, that's me, right? My husband is much more detail oriented, and he's the financial guy because he was a CMA and all that kind of stuff, and he's really good at that. He likes doing that. He loves spreadsheets. God bless him. We need the doers. We need the people that are really going to take the, buy into the vision, understand what we want to achieve with this, and run with it. And in other ways, I'm more hands off because I also want them to feel, proud and invested in their work. So, that I really never have a qualm about that. My only concern now is that as we continue to grow, that I'm not going to travel as much. That we need someone at our, we need some management skills now coming up next. That's what we're talking about now, my husband and I, is we need someone that is at that level.
It's like one of the biggest misnomers in entrepreneurialism is that I want to work for myself so I can have freedom.
Yes. Yeah, I'm really truly do.
I do too. I think it's like freedom 75, but the truth is, you're obviously passionate about what you do, and for me, I think it's become like that's just part of my journey, and I'm learning to live more in the moment and accepting the fact that I'm wired to want to love to do this, to scale, to grow, to enrich, and all that stuff. And I've let go of some of that freedom stuff as I categorized it maybe 10 years ago. I don't know if you've done that or not.
A little bit. I mean, especially now too. I just can't.
But you had real freedom. I guess that's the difference between you and I. You really were living on a beach, I could vision you with your laptop,
Oh,
Like,
all those photos, they're all fake. You can't. The sun's not right. You can't work in a latte on
Okay,
a beach.
fair enough.
In a nice cafe with a view of the beach. Uh, yeah, and the thing is most people can have that. Most people don't realize how, I mean, it's more difficult with family and all that kind of stuff, but it's still very doable. I know lots of traveling families like that build their businesses on the road. And I'm so grateful to that. And I expect that at one point we will get back to that.
Cool.
Not going to be for a while yet. And, we're thing is, we're also really excited about the growth part right now too. It is very exciting. It's a little worrisome to get bigger than that's all my time, and I don't get to edit videos, which I really enjoy. And
What?
yeah, I do. I know. Or writing.
That seems the hardest work ever.
It's fun.
I did a video for a buddy of mine's birthday one year, and like it was literally the most mind-bending, impossible thing that I think I've ever tried to do. Like so outside my natural skill set.
It's different. I enjoy it, but those little things that I still enjoy to do
Wow.
that I don't know that and I hold on to some of them. I'm like, no, you can't do that. I still want to do this part.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because one of the lessons I learned early on from a mentor was, about outsourcing the kind of low dollar things.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that they're not important or that,
Yeah.
somebody really valuable can't do that work. But, if you can have somebody do something for you for $20 an hour and you can make $100 over here, even if you're really, really passionate about it, your time is still better spent. And so as business owners, don't we have to ask ourselves those questions? Like, do I love this thing at $1,000 an hour so that I want to do it, like editing or something like that?
Yeah. No, and there's so much about it that I really, really love to do, and I'm so proud of what we've done already, and some of the clients that we've had. It's really just kind of amazing to me, and it's just something I never envisioned traveling like that either. But it's never something I thought would be in my life, but it's very empowering, and I do love it. And it's also great to work with my husband. Like, we haven't killed each other, and we work really well together, and that's important.
It's hard to do. I came from a meeting with my wife, so we I don't know how you manage that, probably better than we do, but we compartmentalize our strategic planning sessions and then promise not to talk about work during this window of time, but sometimes it slips in.
Always.
Is that kind of the same?
Always.
Yeah.
It's rarely not a topic of conversation. Yeah. Even if it's just, oh my gosh, we have to do this tomorrow or something like that, and it's something we could get better at, but
if it works,
we're not complaining. That's the thing, that we're both really enjoying it. Well, there are times we're complaining when it builds up, but otherwise it's still something that we just are so, I don't know, fortunate to do together and to love doing together. And he lets me be the boss, and that's the natural order. So
isn't it? Wait, you let him pretend like he is, right? Like he thinks that he is, but we all know.
Well, no, it was funny when we decided to do Hectic Media. We were actually on a beach in Mexico, and it was funny. So we incorporated it, and we had those big plans. We had our first client.
Is that like being married in Mexico, where it's not really legitimate when you come back?
No, or incorporated in Alberta.
Okay.
And so we were sitting down, or it was like a month had gone by. We had our first client, and we're doing all this work or whatever. And I wanted to have this discussion, like, we need to say, who's the boss here, you know? Like, obviously we're working together, but at the end of the day, and I was so nervous to have this conversation. Finally, I brought it up, and within a second, he's like, oh, it's totally you.
That's awesome.
And I was like...
Well, that's a sign of a great marriage, too, let's be honest, right?
Yeah, I mean...
Role definition's an oddly important thing, I think, in our personal lives and in business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's easy to pussyfoot around it, and it's easy to not have those hard chats.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible that you could do that with your husband, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, we had already gone through a huge role upheaval, right? Like, that was one of the hardest parts when we started traveling was... we had roles in our home, and then we're on the road, and all those roles are gone. Like, so now who's doing what? And it was a struggle when the blog started. But then we just found our groove, and really, it's been good since then.
It's like next level vulnerability, really. You know, when you think of like what makes great teams and what makes great relationships and personal lives, it's about being able to be vulnerable and about being able to say, listen, like, I really suck at this thing, or like, I don't feel like you're really doing the best work here, like, can we outsource this, or however those conversations happen, and knowing that as teams, professionally and personally, we can just have that chat and solve the problems and not be personally invested in the outcomes.
Well, I mean, granted, it's not all rainbows. Like, there are those uncomfortable conversations, and there is that immediate defense that can come when that it's hard to navigate that, but it's usually, we both know that on reflection, then we come back and talk about it a couple hours later and it's solved, right? Or, you know, we don't fight about the little stuff. Like, it's just, yeah, it's, I mean, it just works. There's just a way that it works. We find our way every time. So, yeah.
I want to just take a step back and talk a bit more about your strategic decisions in scaling. So for people that might be listening or watching, if you could give some advice about how you made those decisions successfully and what the outcome of those decisions were in you accomplishing your goals. And it sounds like those things were having some more time to travel and having a bit more leverage away from the stuff that you didn't really like so much. Is that fair?
Yeah, basically.
So how did you make those decisions and what was the outcome?
The first one was the toughest one, right? Of course, when it's just the two of us and we're like, okay, we need to, you know, we're getting busy enough that we could really use some help because things are suffering. Okay. Whether it be the blog, as we focused more on hectic media or whatnot. And so that was the most difficult decision. And then when we brought her on, she stayed for 3 years. She became like a real integral part of our team. And that was really, really important to us. And it helped. I mean, it was a struggle again, as always, when you bring on someone, and especially think she was our guinea pig, being our first, like figuring us out, right? But she's a trooper, and we had a really great relationship for a long time. And after that, I have to say, honestly, it became a little bit easier when we started to roll a little bit, and you get another client, and then you're like, hey, we're really onto something here. Like, we tried all kinds of different things, of course, as we talked about, like, oh, we'll do these training sessions online or something like that, and oh, that didn't work. Then we move on to something else. And so but once now that we've landed on kind of our core offering, it's made it much more easy for us to find the right people to fit in the right places. And I think that might be the hardest part of it, is just what's going to bring you your biggest bang for your buck, and where does it make sense for you to stick your offering. You can't do everything. Right. So then once you find out what that is, it's finding the right people to fit into those spots. And it's not just about their skills. It's so much about personality. It's so much about all those other, what is their investment going to be in the company, you know? And so we've had some people come and go, but some have been really strong and taken us much farther than we could have had on our own, for sure.
The funny thing to me about that type of story, because I experienced a similar thing, is that like, I wouldn't have worked for me back then. Like, what a risk taker that first person is. Did you feel that way at the time? I certainly did. Like, I was like, why do you want to work for me? Like, I'm not worthy, right? Yeah. But then you build some culture, and there's some systems, and then next thing you know, you've got a thing, and then other people are showing up to be part of this thing, and I was kind of surprised by that. Did that happen for you too? Or you like, maybe you're way more confident than I am.
No, of course I still had that too. And I think, I mean, it's imposter syndrome, right?
I felt that. I still feel that.
I feel that every day. But really, especially with that, is like having them, and it's so important to have them see your vision and have them buy into your vision as well. And to me, that's the biggest hurdle to overcome with people, is to have them have that belief in you and want to invest their time. No matter that they're getting however many dollars an hour to do it, they have to enjoy it if they're going to stick around for the long term.
It's bigger than that. It's not like a normal job at all.
It's not at all. So but every day I feel like an imposter. Part of it, I think, is also just, there is now, but there's no formal, hey, I'm going to become an influencer marketing specialist. That training doesn't exist out there, and we're doing it as we go. And so they have to know that their input into all of that as well is so important, because it can be very insular around our little place between Pete and I. So, there's those other intrinsic things that we can offer that will help them buy into what we're doing.
Well, it sounds like what you're doing is unique, and your culture is sufficient in supporting that you can have a lot of pride in your office and with your business around your USP. And so maybe this is a good time for you to tell us what that is. So, you talked about your offering and your team's commitment to delivering strategically those things. So maybe just talk to us a bit about what those things are.
Yeah, sure.
And who your, well, I shouldn't say who your dream client is in case it's not somebody that's on board with you right now. So yeah, maybe just tell us about what you're doing and you're most passionate about.
Yeah, so we have a couple of really a core business streams, two of them. One of them is influencer marketing. So we have worked with a lot of different tourism boards, but our biggest client that we've worked with now for on and off for 4 years is Expedia. Well, it was it's an app called Trover that is owned by Expedia. So when it was just Trover, they hired us and we worked with them for 18 months. And then when they were being sold to Trover or to Expedia, then they went away for a while. Now they came back. So we've been working with them really well for a long time, and it's a really great, fantastic relationship. We have getting people to talk about their apps and all that kind of stuff. So that's one core of our business. We also included things we're working on an ambassador project for Canadian Badlands. So we have some local stuff that we do as well. And then social media marketing. So one of our house sitting clients, we do all of their social media. We just signed another client in Calgary the other day. We also do training sessions under that as well too. And then we also
training sessions for organizations who want to manage their own in-house. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. So all of our stuff is pretty niche to travel. We have one client that's outside of travel, but otherwise it's all about travel, which is great because that's where our passion is anyways. And I don't want to say a lot of clients, I'd say maybe just under half come to Hector Media because they knew us as bloggers first. So they trust what we're putting online. I'm exposed, like I tell everything online, so they know what I'm about, and they come over from there.
Have you gone back and like taken out any of those original blog posts that like weren't of your today quality? For
I should do more of that, to be honest. Do a bit of a cleanup.
It's in the archives.
Totally. No one goes that far. Don't read anything from Bolivia. And then we also do some content marketing. So people that just strictly want some stuff written for their blog or their content placed on someone else's.
And that's in the travel niche as well, right?
Exactly, yeah. So we have we do some for the house sitting website, but we also work with World Expeditions on that kind of stuff. So that's not as big as the other two streams, but that's there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now I want to get like the ugly stuff. So what was like the single biggest falling flat entrepreneur moment that you've ever had, where you're like looking back and you're like, I can't believe I was so stupid? Wow. Or maybe you don't have one.
You know, the business development manager was an expensive mistake for us. That's probably the biggest one.
Was that about a step or a person that was kind of too big for where you were at, or solving problems that you maybe didn't quite have yet, or what was the reason for that?
It wasn't just the right person. It was in the start, like in the beginning, he had a big name in the travel industry, and so it brought us a lot of clout to start with, to have him on board. And it did open some doors for us for sure. We got a couple of good clients out of that relationship. But then it kind of went on too long, and part of it's personal, and I won't get into that, but it just, the usefulness of it kind of wore out. And we should have stopped it at about 6 months, and it went on about a year. And
that's not bad.
Well, I mean, it was a lot back then. I mean, granted, that was right around the diagnosis time too, so our mind was elsewhere. But it should have been something that we cut off earlier. But anyways, that was probably the biggest one. Otherwise, I would say, I mean, you try things and you
test and split
you test
test
exactly and see, oh shit, shouldn't have done that, and blah 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 or whatever. Invested much time in that. But otherwise, I'd say we're actually pretty careful. And it sounds really weird to say for people that sold everything to travel over the world, but we're pretty risk averse. When it comes to stuff like that. And so we haven't, since we started, had a terribly bad year. Like, we've always been in the black, which is easy to do when you're, very low operating costs.
Well, I don't think it's easy to do.
Well,
I mean, any
not
business
maybe.
is tough.
Yeah, but now I feel like in the last year, I feel like we're on a really good path.
So when were you most recently, like, hands in the air, like, I totally crushed that. Like, give me a
10 minutes before I got here.
Oh,
I had a
serious?
great phone call.
Oh, no way. Okay, so tell us about it.
Potential client.
Okay.
Oh, I don't want to go into too many details.
Well, not too many details, but give us, like, was it that you just really nailed your script, or like you built rapport like mad in your meeting, or how did that go?
We made a short list.
Okay.
And for some business, that would be a big coup for us.
Okay.
And
cool.
I've worked.
Love the goal setting. Nicely done.
I worked really hard on that proposal, so that was a really good Yahoo moment.
So was that like in your year's vision that you went through this list and you said, okay, like?
Oh, I don't do that.
No, it was just like you woke up this morning and had like.
I don't believe in goal setting.
No?
No.
Okay.
No, I think it can detract from opportunities that may pop up.
Mm.
If you're so focused on, certain things,
Okay.
something may come up the side and you're like, I can't, I'm busy with that, and then you could blow a good opportunity.
So then you're all about like the flow of the energy and just
Yes.
riding the wave.
And capitalizing on, what we can.
Yeah.
And building, always building.
Okay, so that's like a philosophical segue. So tell me like more about your life's philosophy, your strategic philosophy, and the way that you approach things like that. Because I've read like tons of books about this type of thing. One of them's called the Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, and there's another one that he wrote too that's super cool. That talks a lot about that, about us being like so invested in outcomes and so invested in like a vision or some picture of ourselves or the way that we are to other people that we just miss like the moments and the beauty and like all this massive potential that we have within us and around us. So what do you think about that? Is there anything in that resonates with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been smacked around by life pretty hard a couple times,
No
right?
doubt.
And it really, that is a big switch for me. And it went from, I had these goals of, I bought the big house in Okotoks, had the nice cars, had the great job, all that kind of stuff. And then, but what was it getting me? I wasn't unhappy, but we weren't as ridiculously happy as we, were subsequent years after that. So it, that really taught us a lot about just appreciating what we have in the moment. And we're not so risky that, we're running around in our 40s without a retirement plan or anything like that. We're responsible. But it's, when it comes to, we've just learned it, especially I think as an entrepreneur, a lot of time you have to, is those goals are great and our goal is to keep it going, right? And if we don't pay attention to these opportunities that are coming at us, I don't want to miss anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're moving towards being able to spend more time doing what you love and accepting opportunities that are going to help you do that.
Exactly.
So if the universe were to deliver you, something in the next year or two that would move you closer to that, then what would that look like, do you think?
Oh gosh, that's a great question, because we ask that of ourselves all the time. It's like, we've built this pretty awesome life and we love it. What's next? What's after that, right? Moon travel? I don't know. So I think it's more, the next year or two is really just about getting healthy again and getting strength back and getting energy back and all of that kind of stuff. I want to get back to a little bit more hardcore traveling.
Yeah.
I want to go to Kyrgyzstan. I want to drive the Silk Road. I want to do these things that, will take some planning now that we have this business we really have to maintain, but are things that will be challenging again. I miss that. I miss those early days of travel, that it was really like that. So that's really, it's never really a list of things we want to do, but more just a list of places we want to go is really what we've got.
And do you picture yourself leveraging out of the business to do that, or do you picture yourselves like leveraging that back into the business while you're traveling?
I want someone to run my business so I can run around and travel.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal.
That's good. It's good to know that.
Yeah.
That's not everybody's vision, right?
No.
Many people just, I've met so many entrepreneurs that just love being at the office, doing the thing, their first thing, they're late at night, and that's like their passion, right?
Yeah.
And they wouldn't want to leverage away from that at all. That would kind of destroy their flow.
Yeah. I always will want to be a part of it. I'm really excited about what we have, and I can't imagine that not being, not being tied into it.
Right.
But I'm also want to be hands off. I want people to be empowered to do it, and we really strongly believe in our business philosophy. We don't, we're not hiring, when we recommend influencers, for example, we're not recommending someone who's bought a bunch of Instagram fans, which is what a lot of people will do, right?
Oh, really?
It's just after the big numbers. We're more about storytelling. We're just going to announce some storytelling scholarships we're going to give away.
Oh, cool.
Like, we're all about the true stories, about emotive storytelling and about being authentic and all of that. And I think there's not a lot of people in our line of business that talk and that follow that, that philosophy.
Yep.
So for us, that's very important, and I really want the people that work for us to understand that and to progress that, because I just feel like that art is being lost these days, and it's something that we're both very passionate about.
It's funny, my next question was actually going to be, so what is it that, in closing our discussion today, that you would say to compel your ideal client just to want to reach out to you? But I feel like you might have just said that.
Yeah.
But maybe flesh that out a little bit more. So
Sure.
talk to me a bit about what makes your business special, and why someone in the travel business may just need exactly what it is that you're doing, and then tell us how they would reach out to you too.
Yeah. So I think part of it is that we've been to many places. We've seen the best and worst in travel marketing, and we're well seasoned that way. When it comes to influencers, we've been around a really long time, and we know a lot of the people, and we know the way they operate, and we know the tricks people play, and
right.
We can cut through all of that a lot easier than someone else could. And also just our real dedication to storytelling. And like I said, we're announcing these scholarships. We're really excited about it, and to help bring that into blogging, back into blogging, and get people, really telling true stories from the places that they visit and that sort of thing. So that's what's really exciting for us. And so you can find us everywhere as Hectic Media or Hectic Travels. You can watch our lives unfold online with a K, HECKTIC. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah,
You have a
too.
crazy, awesome story, and it was good to get to know you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah,
Courtney.
thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.